Welcome everyone to the online streaming of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction from the roof of the Howey Physics Building where the Georgia Tech Observatory is located. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a beautiful view from where we're located. We've been enjoying the sunset. We apologize that we had said it might be starting at 5:45, but it just wasn't dark enough. I hope at the moment you're getting your oohs and ahs in as you can see Jupiter and Saturn with the rings up above. Before I go much further, just for giving credit to everyone, working tonight is John Wallum from the College of Sciences, Megan Birch from the Georgia Tech Research Institute, and my name is Jim Sowell. I'm the director of the observatory here in the School of Physics. It's December 21st, winter solstice has started, 2020, and maybe this is a bright spot to bring this year to an end. Now, I hope you're enjoying this view, but I want you to go outside and look. So we're going to, the view on the computer screen has the two straight up and down. And it doesn't matter whether you're in Atlanta, anywhere in our country, you're pretty much going to have the same view. If you go out, when you go out inside to look at it, Saturn is significantly fainter. It's only about 1/10 as bright, and it's at about 2 o'clock. So you can see a tiny gap between bright Jupiter and then very close to it is Saturn. So we can rotate the camera on the back of the telescope to give any kind of orientation that we want. We want it to fit on our field of view. At some point we will zoom in a little bit to show you some bands on Jupiter. We are, well, you want to go ahead and, well, I see we're on Saturn. So let's stick with Saturn for a second with the beautiful rings. I want to remind you that these rings are not solid washers, but they are composed of billions of particles about the size of BBs and marbles covered with ice, and that's why they're so reflective, but billions of moons in orbit around Saturn. Saturn's about 9 times larger in diameter than the Earth and 95 times the mass of the Earth. Again, Jupiter and Saturn are gas giants. They do not have a solid surface. They are much more like a star or a cloud. There's no such thing as landing a spacecraft on them. You would just continue to sink. But this is a great view of Saturn. We go through about every 15 years, we will go from a great view to then being edge on the rings, in which the view is not so beautiful, the rings disappear, and then we go back to a fantastic view. So right now, the last couple of years and a couple more to come, we've got these beautiful views of Saturn. Now, we are, as you go out and look, these are the bright objects near sunset toward the southwestern sky. We are looking through a lot of atmosphere, so there's a little bit more wiggling of the images at time. But please want you to go out and to view it. Okay, we're now at Jupiter, and we've got 3 moons, 2 on the left and 1 on the right. And so we're overexposing Jupiter so that you can make out these moons. These moons are a little bit bigger than the Earth's moon and about the size of Mercury. But what we're going to do is turn down the brightness now of Jupiter so that you can begin to see the stripes on the surface. Jupiter's a very impressive object to see. We're doing some zooming. We're doing the best we can, trying to get you as good a view as possible of this. I must say that it is an interesting test here in that I'm in my 60s, John's in his 40s, and Megan is in her 20s, and Megan has the sharpest eyesight by far, and I'm having a hard time seeing anything. And I have asked Megan if she could see the red spot on Jupiter. We always get asked that question, and she could not see it. So at the moment, it's not there, but the major players right now are the conjunction of the two. The closest approach of the two occurred at about noon today, but it really hasn't changed much at all since then. Uh, this conjunction has been referred to as a Christmas star, or reminding of the story of the Star of Bethlehem. The reason for that is, if you're looking for a natural explanation as to the basis for the Star of Bethlehem, with today's software, astronomers have been running simulations and going back in time and trying to see if something unusual had happened. We've never found a supernova, and comets would be very difficult to tell. But there have been quite a few conjunctions that occurred a few years prior to the birth of Jesus. The other problem we have is our calendar's not exact, so we don't know exactly how many years ago, and most experts think that we are off by a few years. But the thought is that a conjunction of some special objects might have been the basis for the star. The simulations that I've looked at, that I've run, Jupiter got very close to a bright star called Regulus in the constellation of Leo, and there was also a conjunction of Venus and Jupiter, and Venus and Jupiter would have been both very bright. So that might be the basis for it. So these conjunctions do not occur too often, at least out in visible sight like this. The timing is wonderful that it is so close to Christmas. So that's part of the reasoning behind why this has been given that kind of background, that kind of discussion. Okay. So we're going to rotate the camera a little bit. We want to go the other way. There we go. And so go back a little bit, Megan. Right about there. That's good. So if you go outside, and it's okay, we're going to keep broadcasting for about 15 more minutes. If you want to run outside right now and see if you can see it with the naked eye. Also, a pair of binoculars. We were looking before we started up with binoculars, and that was just a fantastic view. You don't have to have very strong binoculars. The hardest thing about binoculars is just trying to keep yourself steady once you're able to get your eye on it. So you need to put your elbows on a picnic table or lean up against the side of a building or the side of a tree, and that will really help stabilize it, especially if you can get the binoculars up against the side without damaging them. But this is a beautiful sight. Now, the other thing to continue to do is to continue to watch this movement. So what we're seeing is two planets in orbit around the sun, and the Earth is also moving, and so we're on a moving platform, and that's part of what's causing these alignments to occur. But tomorrow night, they're only going to be separated by a little bit, and please go out and watch. And I know here in Atlanta, we have, during the coming week, we're going to have some days with rain and some days very cold, but you should really continue to watch this. Just like I highly recommend that you watch the moon go through its phases. The moon is first quarter right now, straight overhead, and if you come back out and look at it tomorrow, you're going to see that it's moved a little towards your left, if you're here in the United States, and it's a little bit more illuminated. And what you're watching is the moon in orbit around the Earth. In the case of Jupiter and Saturn, and with the Earth, we're all in orbit around the sun, and if we had a top-down view, you could really see how that's occurring. But you do want to keep an eye on these two, because you can see they are close to the western sky, so we are losing them. They will eventually be behind the sun, and then they'll start coming out in a few months, early in the morning. So it really isn't going to be until the autumn, again, that we're going to get to see Jupiter and Saturn. Again, they are not fast movers, so they stay in approximately the same part of the sky. I'm looking at the image, and that is impressive, really seeing Saturn. Megan, you should see it. This is the kind of memory. That's neat. And it's not being done with pictures. We are giving you a live view. The light from Jupiter's orbit has it about 5 times further away from the sun than the Earth's orbit, and Saturn's orbit is almost 10 times further from the sun. And because of that, the light takes a different amount of time to get to us. It takes 8 minutes to go the Earth-Sun distance. So for Jupiter, we're looking at light that's traveling about 4 to 4.5 times, closer to 4.5 times that of the Earth-Sun distance. So 4.5 times 8 is about 36 minutes. So you're looking back in time. And with Saturn, it's almost 10 times 8 minutes. So that would be about 80 minutes, 72 to 80 minutes, more than an hour and 15 minutes or so. So even though the two are in the same field, the light you're seeing reflected off of these planets at different times. Again, they are not self-illuminating, they are reflecting light from the sun. If you go out and look up at the moon, the light from it only takes about a second to reflect off of it to us. What should we talk about? Okay. Let me tell you a little bit more history, since we were talking about the Star of Bethlehem. An aspect that happened even before then is that when Julius Caesar died in about 44 BC, there was a power struggle. Mark Antony kind of had control of the Rome area, and Augustus, who I believe was Julius' nephew, but Julius Caesar had adopted him, made him his own son, was outside of Rome and was only about 18 years old, but was very politically astute. And he was, they're trying to win favor as to who's going to be the next ruler of Rome. Well, Julius Caesar had a will that said all of the Roman citizens were going to get an inheritance. Augustus got money from all of his relatives and dispersed money out to the Roman citizens. And another clause in the will was that there were going to be Olympic-like games. Well, the games got set up, and the night of the start, a comet appeared in the night sky. And Augustus jumped on the idea and said that this is Julius Caesar's spirit going up to the heavens to be with the gods. So that somewhat implied that Julius Caesar now was godlike. And here you have Augustus, who's the son of a godlike figure. That kind of helped ensure that he became the next ruler, and actually the first emperor, I believe. And it was, if you look at coins and statues from that era, there were always comets and stars drawn in with this. So later, if you stick with the thought that conjunctions were the reason for the idea of the Star of Bethlehem, why is it that only the wise men, the Magi from Persia, placed importance on a Jewish king? You would have all of these other people who would be seeing the same thing up in the sky. Well, the one article I've read that to me seems to have a ring of truth stated that at the time of these conjunctions, it was about the 25th year of the reign of Augustus, and that the heavens were once again proclaiming that this has been a great reign by Augustus, and he was being honored in many ways as it was around his 25th year. He actually ruled for close to 40 years, and it was a great time of peace and tranquility for the Roman Empire. So that's a prevailing thought also as to why the Romans didn't attach a kind of significance with this. The Magi, though, had a different set of constellations, and they were quasi-astrologers too, so their emphasis and understanding of what was happening in the sky was different. So, you were wanting to try to get the moons of Jupiter again? Okay, we're going to try to do that. So again, it's much easier for the eye looking through a telescope to see the wide range in brightness variations between bright Jupiter and the fainter moons. And beautiful view. Okay, and do you see there is a moon that's just on the edge of Jupiter? Go back to that view that zoomed in. There is a moon right on the edge. See? And that moon, I believe, is Ganymede. and it's about to move in front of Jupiter, or it's actually just coming out from behind. We'll have to watch and see. And I don't have everything in my mind right, but I think the one on the bottom right is Io, and the one on the other side, the upper one, is Europa, and then the farthest one is Callisto. So that is a beautiful view. Of course, Voyager images gave us fantastic views of these worlds. Io's the one with all of the volcanoes. Europa, scientists think that the icy layer is floating on a very deep ocean, and there's excitement as to whether there might be some form of probably microbial or algae-like life there in the oceans. Maybe something we'll see in our lifetimes, as NASA is. We're still trying to come up with the best way to send spacecraft there. So this is a really great view. We're getting a great show with this. So at some point we will drop it back down so you can see the bands. Again, I hope where you're at that you do have a beautifully clear sky and that you're able to go out and see this. I always love hearing from where you have been watching our video from. So if you're definitely outside of the state of Georgia, I'd appreciate it if you want to send a quick email. But this is we greatly appreciate you joining us like this, and we're very fortunate. I mean, here in the southeast, the weather is hit or miss. Last night was cloudy, and we would not have been able to do this. And but thank you for joining us, and we will continue to broadcast. What time is it? Broadcast for maybe 5 more minutes, 5 to 10. Okay. We're working on Jupiter. Okay. Very good. Okay, Jupiter and Saturn. I really love this view of Saturn. The Galileo did not have a powerful enough telescope to see the rings of Saturn. He referred to it as having ears. You can kind of see that it has a football shape if you weren't able to resolve the rings, but we are able to do that. And it's just a very neat view. And consider ourselves very fortunate in both the weather and with the optics. And we thank you for joining us, and we'll continue to look at this for a short while. So, about 5 more minutes?
Well, we're at 15.
Sorry?
We're at 15.
We're at 15, yeah. We'll go for about 5 more minutes, okay? Now, we are taping this, so if you want to come back and re-watch it, show it to friends, and you can see tapes of our other online public nights. Also, on my website, if you Google astronomy and Georgia Tech, that'll bring up the website, the link for the observatory. I do have about a 5-page article about the Star of Bethlehem, some of the issues, and why this one and conjunctions might have a basis behind that. But I am also very in tune to other interpretations as to what the Star of Bethlehem was, and I'm perfectly fine if you want to believe it was a miracle also. I'm not trying to persuade one way or the other. If you are going outside, I'll give you a quick tour of the sky. So just remember this. So you've got Jupiter and Saturn way toward the west. Up overhead is the moon, and a little bit further to the left of the moon is Mars. It's almost straight overhead for us. And then way off toward the east, we have the winter sky beginning to come up, some of the brighter stars. And at our next public night, which is in January, I believe it's the 21st of January, maybe we'll be able to show you the Orion Nebula, another one of my friends up in the night sky that I haven't seen in a while. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. It is a beautiful sight. But please go out and enjoy the view. So we're gonna go for maybe one more minute. Anything else you want to say? Again, beautiful view. I'm seeing Jupiter. There is a moon touching the edge of Jupiter. I think you can see it at about 45 degrees. And one more moon further up near the edge. We haven't brought in any of the moons of Saturn, but really tonight's show is having these two together. And please try to see it with the naked eye or with binoculars, and keep an eye on this for at least a week, and you'll still see them pretty close together and see the dance of some of these planets. So again, I do want to thank you for joining us. Let me throw in a few last details. We've been using a Celestron 11-inch diameter telescope. We're on the roof of the Howey Physics Building here at Georgia Tech. The camera is a Canon
7D Mark II.
7D Mark II. And again, I can't thank John Wallum and Megan Birch enough. I only have to sit here and talk. They're the ones that are making this happen for you, and I do greatly appreciate it. So thank you again for joining us, and one of our favorite astronomical expressions is keep looking up. So thank you and have a great night.